Please arouse bodhicitta and then listen. His Holiness is continuing with the instructions on developing the two types of bodhicitta according to the founders of the two traditions that explain the essence of Prajnaparamita. This is one of the 100 short instructions. Another meditation on impermanence. It is considering how all composite things are impermanent. All composites perish as soon as they arise. And so our bodies and life, from the moment that they arise, the moment they arise, they perish. So they are coexist with death all the time. And so does practice of requesting the gurus to help us remember that we are going to die. Remember that we have no time to waste. Bless us to give up any attachment to bad acts. Bless us to give up any attachments and so forth. Imagine, and once you meditate upon this, you start the supplication until impermanence really spurs you on and inspires you to practice. Everything you see, everything that appears, everything that you see, everything that you hear is untrue, like an illusion. It is impermanence. It is impermanent. Next is a meditation upon the actual manner of death. It's thinking about what happens at the time of death when you are beyond the point of medical aid. Some people suffer from illness for a long time, but no medicine will help them. You are unable to drink. You lose control of your bowels and urine. You are unable to bear the dry feelings in your body. You lose the color in your face. And you are unable to sleep at day. You are unable to sleep at night. You are unable to drink. There is nothing you can do to help. You're surrounded by your friends for the last time. Eat your last food. Speak your last. Whisper out your last words. Your mind filled with fear. You stare at your relatives' faces. You grasp at their clothes. There's nothing you can do. You were unable to drink, isn't it? And you pass away. Once you pass away, your corpse is carried off to some charnel ground. Think that all of the karma that will lead you to the lower realms will ripen upon no one else except yourself, and at that time it will ripen. So hold us with compassion. Think that there is nothing other than Dharma that we need to practice. Bless us to develop devotion for the Master. Bless us to have compassion for all beings. You should be inspired by the thought of impermanent death and impermanence in everything you do, and have no attachment at all. You must have revulsion for the acts of this life. And so these meditations on impermanence are to reverse your attachment to this life, and to think of all those who are attached to this life and to commit misdeeds with great compassion. Next is the meditation on cause and effect. First is a meditation on samsaric cause and effect. We go from our misdeeds, we go to the lower realms. From the defiled virtues, we go to higher realms. Once we leave this life and go to the next, then we will follow. Then none of our possessions or friends or relatives will follow us. The only thing that will go with us is our karma. As the result of the ripened result of the karma is to be born as the result of a misdeed, fully ripened result of a misdeed is to be born in the hell. Of a middling-sized misdeed is to be born as a hungry ghost. Of a small misdeed, it is to be born as an animal. And there are the compatible results, which are to be born in a place where you experience unimaginable suffering. Or there is the suffering, compatible result of acts, which means that you were born in a place where you perform many misdeeds. The dominant result is to be born in a hostile environment. As an example of the experience that's compatible results, by killing a result, you place in a place where you're born with a short lifetime and are killed. The result of stealing you, all of your wealth is stolen by enemies and thieves. And you are left with nothing. As a result of sexual misconduct, you are always in conflict with hostile enemies. As a result of lying, you're always criticized and disregarded, and so forth. This section of the text goes through all of the different karmic results that occur as a result, that result from different misdeeds that we experience. When we think about the different types of results of karmas, we should develop great fear of the lower realms, it says, and great confidence in karmic cause and results. It also talks about the rebirth in the four realms as a result of jhana meditation. These are white acts with white ripening. These are what the lesser type of individual commits out of the fear of the suffering of the lower realms. And supplicating the Guru is to let us to understand that karmic cause and result are unfailing. Bless us to always strive towards vast virtuous actions. So think of how karmic cause and result is unfailing, and so forth. The next section is thinking about the nirvanic cause and result. Non-Buddhists, this is describing the different practices non-Buddhists go through to achieve higher realms. but they have an inferior source of refuge, a wrong view, and their actions are mistaken, so they just end up creating more suffering for themselves. So that the unmistaken path is taught by that is the cause of the supreme enlightenment. It was taught by the perfect Buddha. The Dharma, the true Dharma he taught is the path, and the Sangha that accomplishes that are the companions on the path. By following this, we can be freed from all suffering and go to the other side of the ocean of samsara and develop the ultimate abandonment and realization of our own path. This portion is discussing the results that come from the different types of paths, the listeners, and those of the congregating self-Buddhas and the rhinoceros-like self-Buddhas, as well as those of the Bodhisattvas. But these lesser paths do not develop bodhicitta, and they only achieve a nirvana that is appropriate for their own level of practice and for their intentions. The children of all the victors, the intelligent bodhisattvas who have entered who have the family of the Mahayana, know that all sentient beings have been their parents limitless numbers of times, and so they have unbearable compassion for them, cherishing others more than themselves. This is describing the path that the Bodhisattva follows by practicing generosity and discipline and patience, as well as diligence and jhana meditation, as well as the practice of prajna. Develop the prajna that recognizes all of the general and specific characteristics of all phenomena. They meditate upon the 37 factors of enlightenment, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 complete abandonments, the 4 feet of miracles, the 5 faculties, 5 powers, the 7 branches of enlightenment, and the 8 aspects of the Noble Path, and come to the state of Buddhahood with its all of its qualities, the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, and the 18 unshared qualities. Discusses achieving the result of the two kayas, the essence kaya or Svabhavaka kaya, as well as the form kayas. Now we have the precious human body. We have entered the gate of the Buddhist Dharma. We have spiritual mastered the Mahayana. So whatever we do, we must not allow ourselves to go into must give up the wrong paths and not enter the levels of the lower inferior. We must have unbearable compassion for all sentient beings. And we pray to the Gurus, grasp us with compassion, bless us to turn our baths on the lower paths, bless us to cherish other beings more than ourselves, bless us to be able to exchange our happiness and suffering for the suffering of others. Bless us to completely give up our own selfish aims. Bless us to strive entirely for the sake of others, and so forth. Develop great compassion for all sentient beings who have not entered such a path. Now, above there were 10 different methods of meditating on impermanence that were described, and all 10 of these and so we should think about these 10 different ways. These 10 different meditations are something that we need to bring into the practice in our daily life. It is very important for us to incorporate that practice into our lives. And as I said before, death and impermanence, everything is changing moment by moment, and so for that reason, and so we have no opportunity, we have no time to have any attachment or aversion to things that change from moment to moment. If we think about this, if we had a definite time, if we were going to be here for a certain definite period of time, and we knew it was going to be that long, then we'd be able to say we can do this thing, and we can do this thing. We'd be able to plan for a long time. However, we do not know whether things will go exactly as how I planned, and since it is uncertain, if we were to imagine that it were permanent, that what is not permanent were permanent, then that is confusion. Thinking what is certain, thinking what is not certain is just a delusion. And if we think about things that are pointless and meaningless, we do not have the time, or we do not have the time to waste, or the time to lose practicing or doing meaningless things. birth and death are coexist. Since all phenomena are, from the moment they arise, are things that will perish, that will die and that will perish, for that reason, our own life, from the moment it arises, will perish. From the moment it arises, it coexists with death. Death is not something separate. We do not need to say death is separate from arising or birth. Death coexists with birth. And what that is that when you think about it, like if we have our cupped hands and we bring them together, if we pour water into our cupped hands, when we pour the water into our cupped hands, then we won't really know where it's leaking from, but it will all leak out, because it'll just gradually leak out between our fingers, and it'll only take a second or two before all the water will have left our will have gone from our hands without us knowing or feeling where it has gone. In the same way, without us knowing, we are getting close. We are approaching the time of our death, and so for that reason, we must remember death. And if we think about actual death, since we are definitely going to die, what will happen? We need to think about the situation that will happen in the future when we will die. We need to imagine what we do. We need to meditate and imagine what will happen to us at the time of death. We need to meditate from right now about the actual manner of our death. And it is important for us to think about this now. And so the main thing is, as I said yesterday, basically, in this human life of ours, if we think about it from perspective, we have achieved a precious human body, and once we have now achieved that precious human body, and so for that reason, each second that we have this human body is a precious moment, because in every second we have the opportunity, we have limitless opportunity to practice the great meaning for ourselves. And so for that reason, this happens continually, but if we let even a single moment go, we are incurring a great loss upon ourselves. And so we have, now that we have achieved this precious human body, we are able to practice back great things for ourselves and others. And so we need to practice these things now. We must do them in this very instant. It is not something where we can think in the future, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it the next day. If we think about it that way, then in that way we'll leave this human life empty-handed. We'll have wasted the human life. And so for that reason, we need to motivate ourselves with the thought of death and impermanence. So we think we have to practice the Dharma as quickly as we can, as fast as we can. We need to inspire ourselves to practice in this way. And this is extremely important. It's like this tool of practicing impermanence. This is what we need to do with it. Just thinking about death and impermanence alone is nothing. Just in order to create fear of death will not benefit us. Now, here during the 18th Kajugunsha, we have had the wonderful opportunity to gather here. And this opportunity the primary reason and purpose for us to gather here is to have discussions about the Dharma. And to engage in the stages of listening and contemplation of the texts of the great traditions of scriptures. And so basically we are here to practice the Dharma. And so in this way, this practice, if we look at it from outside, it is important for us to understand what our actual aim is. The actual aim, the ultimate aim, or the true reason, we often lose that actual one. But then we imagine or confuse some other aim as being our ultimate aim. And if we do that, and if that happens, there's a danger that our Dharma will not really be Dharma. So now in the last year, we've been having the competitions for 3 years, and so there's a lot of people who are thinking about whether they're winning or losing. There's a lot of people that are thinking, are we going to win or are we going to lose? So if we think, and so that winning or losing becomes our ultimate aim. And we could take great interest in that. We think that is what we're gathering for. That is what we consider most important. It is important that this could happen, or it is possible it could happen, but actually that is not the ultimate aim. The competition and the winning in the competition, the reason for this is in order to achieve the actual. It is like a tool for accomplishing the actual aim. And what the actual aim is is it that at first we go forth, we become monks, we enter we begin this process of study. And so for that reason, we have to think about, well, why is it that we become monks? Why do we enter the gate of the Dharma? Why do we go study and practice in monasteries? We need to think about this well. Now, some people in Tibet and the Himalayan ranges, many people, when they become monks, some people from their own people have really prepared themselves, prepared their intentions, and then before they become monks and before they go forth. But many have not. But many are brought by their parents, and their parents send them there to their parents, and because of that reason they become monks. So Drupa Kunak did say one thing. It says that it is said that you are not allowed to become a monk before you can scare away crows. This is something that actually even caves can do. So if there's someone who's unable to, the only people who are unable to do that are people who are real fools. So you have to actually, if it's all you can do is school away things, scare away crows, it's not, you have to have some. It's only when you come to a level where you can understand things and do it. Like if you have a goat can scare away crows. Or when you have a little child who's unable to think. If you give the vows to someone who's too small, a 3-year-old child who's unable to understand anything, it'd be a very funny thing. So in other words, when you become a monk, you have to understand a little bit about this. You have to be able to understand the vows before you can take them. What it says in the root scriptures, the Vinaya, is that you have to have the true view of religion, true view of renunciation. Now, there's a lot of dispute about this. And when you said that you have to have the true view, true renunciation, then there'd be very few people who actually have the real uncontrived revulsion. And saying it uncontrived is not easy. It's not easy to have uncontrived revulsion when you talk about it in a very level way. This is a dangerous. Then because it's almost impossible to gain the vows. But at the very least, you're given an so you have to be able to understand what your masters are saying, and so the reason why we're studying it, like when we are studying them, and say because it's impermanent, because it is produced, and so forth, and the reason for posing these syllogisms is we spend all day meditating about whether a thing or impermanence, but we have to actually see, do we actually develop an understanding of impermanence? Do we have the real feeling of impermanence? We have to think, do we have the feeling that everything is not true? Otherwise, if just speaking things, always just mouthing things. And if we are always focused outward when we are doing debate, then it is not all that useful. And so, for that reason, we absolutely must, when we are studying and when we are doing debate and we're using the scriptures and logic, then we need to think that this is to practice the Dharma. This is a tool for us to, or a method for us to bring our being to practice, into the Dharma practice, and so it is very important that we do this. We say sound is impermanent because it is impermanent. It's not just saying it outside of it, saying it. Me, the subject, am impermanent because I am produced. And if not, we can say that we are making the syllogism in this way, or if we can thinking about the meaning of this, considering about this for ourselves and our own being, and then this is very important. And once we do that, then only at that point does entering the gate of the Dharma have meaning. And only at that point do our studies have meaning. And if we do not, then all the Dharma or the study or the debate that we have done are just mere dry words. We can say many different things orally. We can say things perfectly and say them quite well, but within our hearts, our beings are still wild, and it's just getting rougher and wilder every day. It's not that it, and that does not help. And if it does not help our mind streams become tamer and more peaceful, then there's no point in it. So here we're gathering in the Gunja. The actual ultimate thing that we need to accomplish, the ultimate aim is to think about what your mind is actually like. It's very important to think about what your mind is actually like. So now we're thinking about the winners and losers. We're not counting who has won or lost. That is not the main point. It is to improve our logic and our understanding. It's like a method. It's just a method and a tool, but it is not the ultimate aim. But we human beings have many different aims. But we humans have many difficulties. We often identify the means as being the ends. Like if we think about money, many people really like money. So money is just something that you can use to improve your livelihood. It is a tool for improving your life. It's a method for improving your life. But what many people think is that the money is the ultimate aim, the ultimate thing we need to get. It is the ultimate result. They see it in this way. And they think, if I could just get some money, no matter what happens else, they have great fixation on this and great attachment to this. And this is because they're confusing the means for the ends. If you are just fixated on money, it does not bring you happiness. If you have all the money but then don't have anything, if you have so much attachment to money that you're unable to think, if you think about money as being more important than your life, then that's not okay. You have to think about what's more important. What is the weight of your life and what is the weight of money? What is more important? In these days, there's iPhones and iPads. There are many different things. The Apple company is always producing things. In these days, they've really become very popular and they're very widespread, and everyone's carrying an iPhone in their hand and they consider it something really good and something very impressive. And so actually, once in one lifetime, there was a little boy, there was a young child. There was a boy who sold his. There was a boy who sold one of his 2 kidneys in order to be able to get an iPhone. So you think about what is more important, your kidney or your iPad? But in these days, because of advertisements, we're in the time of advertisements and commercialism. Because of that, because that everyone is confused or deluded by this. They think, oh, this is really important, and they think that this is really important. They must have that. If I don't get that, my life will have no meaning. And so people think about this. It's like we're becoming crazed or insane through this. We must recognize without mistake what the ultimate ends, what our ultimate ends are. And basically, when we study and practice, we need to have the proper motivation, an unmistakable motivation. When we think about our initial motivation, our initial intention, our intentional hope, it is important that this be unmistaken. If that is not unmistaken, you might, in the short term, you might become know the text well and become known for that, but in the end it will not work well. So it is important that you have the unmistaken intent. Generally, with the Dakpo Kaju and the Kaju Kamaja in particular, from the time of the 7th Karmapa Gyatso, the teachings of scriptures really spread from that. During the time of the 6th Karmapa, Tongwa Denden, received many explanations from the great scholar Rong Tunpa. It is, but he did not really write any. But he did not really write any commentaries on the great texts. During the time of the 7th Karmapa, he wrote the Ocean of Literature on Logic on the texts on validity, and his student Karma Tunle continued this, and from that time, the tradition of scriptural explanation began. During the time of the 8th and the 9th Karmapas, the teachings of scripture and study Christianity spread very widely. Later, because of political reasons, there was a deterioration in the Karma Kamsang studies. And so in these ways, when we're studying, we often lack the particular, we lack the tradition of the transmission of the explanations, and often the texts were the Karma Kamsang in the past were actually very difficult to find. You'd hardly ever see them. And then just only recently have we come to a time where you're actually able to see the text in that. So only very recently there were many people many great scholars who said it appeared to them that we say that they're Karmakaya texts, but where are they? But later. But we think that these are just, images from the past, from the history. But these are not things that we actually see or can feel today. But if we think about it in terms of the history from the past, as I mentioned yesterday, there are many monastic instances. There was one Tupten Nekshiding that was found at the time of the Shama, in the 6th Shamas. And there are many other places, Garma Shunlutling and other places that were founded. And there are also many great scholars recognized as Rabjampas, in particular during the time of Chökyi Wanchok. There are Rabjampas who were well known, there was a study of people who had studied particularly the 5 dharmas of Maitreya. And so there was a time to just obtain a degree in just those 5 texts. And there are people who had spent 3 years studying 3 years memorizing the 12 vows, 12 volumes of the texts of the 100,000 Brahmasutra. There are people who were able to memorize. There are 5 or 6 people who were able to memorize this, and the names of these 5 or 6 people were listed. They became very well-known scholars. So there are many such great scholars that appeared. But he said that they were there now. But there's very little that we can actually point out and say there's this. But basically in the past, during the time of the masters of the past, there were great monastic colleges. And they were, so we know that they were there. We can list their names. But we have come now to a time when the teachings of Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism in particular are in danger, and in particular the time among and particularly the teachings of the Karmakajas, we have come to this of the Karma Kamsang are in a precarious situation, and so we have to take great institutions. We have to remember the qualities of the great masters of the past, and feel gratitude towards them, or to repay their kindness, you could say. Or in order, as part of our practice for meditation and so forth, or as a way to repay the kindness of all our parents, the beings in 6 realms. In brief, we are having this gathering in order to do study, and the practice is for that sake. And so everyone should keep that type of motivation in mind and have a good attitude while they do their study and discussion. In the evening, from the time began starting with the Kaji Munlam, we recite the Guru session and 4 yogas at about 10 o'clock. And that Guru Yoga and 4 sessions some people might think it's just something you do that you do only during the moonlight. So I think it's probably just enough for the umze to do this. You don't need to actually recite it yourself. But actually, the Guru session but when the umze, when the chant master reads it over the microphone, then all those mics. There are some who stay in the tents. They need to recite along with it. Now, there are some people who do stay in the pavilion and continue debating. They can continue debating, but sometimes as they're leaving, as they're going to, who have left the pavilion and gone back to the tents, they should recite it together. This was a practice, a custom in the Karmapa Chen. In the past, the discipline masters would carry a big stick, bring them. Here to go from tent to tent, surrounding. And some people, he would, and if he came to a tent and saw what is the difference between to the different tents, and you go and see, are you reading when they would go in at the beginning of each session, the discipline master would go look see whether everyone was reciting the 4-session Guru Yoga, and when people were sleeping and not practicing, then he would punish them. Now at this point, we don't really have anyone to do the punishing. But the discipline masters do need to keep an eye on this. But the main thing is that it's best if you give your own, if you mete out your own punishments. It's not necessary to have someone else to do it. The 4-session Guru Yoga is extremely important. And the manner in which it is important, if I don't explain it, it wouldn't be all right it wouldn't be okay. The reason it's important is because in Tibetan we have the saying of and there's a saying that 1 yidam is enough for an Indian, but 100 are too many for there are 200 too many for Tibetans. So when we practice, we do so many different deities, and we're not able to do them. So we don't really know what's happening when we are practicing. And so it's the same way. When we have taken many different appearances, we've all had many empowerments. And it would be very difficult for us to recite all of the daily practices of all these Yidam deities. And they're not only the Yidam deities, they're also the Dharma protectors. And there are also many where you have taken the initiation of Dharma practice. If you do not continually do the practice, there's the danger that various obstacles will occur. But there are too many Yidams and too many Dharma practitioners. And if we were to have to practice all of them, we wouldn't be able to recite them all, even if we spent all day reciting them. There are some older people who had daily practices that really thick volumes of books as their practice. They had to spend their entire doing their recitations, but now we don't have that much. But now we don't really do that. We spend the time fiddling with our phones and looking at WeChat. And so for that reason, it's difficult for us to spend all day reciting practices. I don't even know if we're able to focus our attention on it. Whoever our particular special deity is, and whoever specially Yidam is, if we should take, it is important for us to take that one special deity and devote ourselves to the practice of that deity. But when we're practicing a deity, if we have attachment and fixation on that, and a bias to it, If I think I need to increase my intelligence, and so therefore I need to practice manjushri in order to increase my practice, and then I forget about all the other ones, and I think about it, give up on the other. That's not how we should practice. Manjushri himself is inseparable in essence from all the other Yidam deities. It's important for us to remember that. Otherwise, if we have a partial or a biased practice, for the moment we enter the gate of Dharma and go for refuge, we say, go for refuge. We say, I go for refuge to those, the greatest of those with 2 feet, the Buddhas. So it's a plural. It's not going to some and going some to others. Saying I'm going to the Buddha, refuge of the Buddha of my own tradition, not those of the other tradition. There's no question of my own and other traditions. From the moment that they're the Buddha, the moment they have the qualities of abandonment and realization, we need to go for refuge. If we just try to, if we're biased in it, doesn't work. And for example, when we also go for refuge to the sanghas, then we go for refuge to them in any of the 10 directions they live in. And so if we think about it, if we think about it, we have to use our entire. And so, in other words, we have to think. So if we split the sangha into many different sects and say, oh, they're Nyingma, they're Geluk, they're some of this. Then if we do that, there's no way that we're going to be able to gather the accumulations. We need to be able to gather all of the accumulations. In order to do that, we need to have all of that. In order to achieve a place where we've eliminated all the faults and perfected all the qualities, we need a support. We need an excellent support. If we don't wish for we have to wish for the most excellent. If we don't have that wish for the most excellent, how can we do our practice? So, if in the Kagyu tradition, if we're unable to practice the practice of Yidam deity in the Karmapa tradition, then we do Guru Yoga. We consider that this is the primary and the highest path. So if you're unable to do the practice of a Yidam deity, then it is important to do the Guru Yoga. Now when we're doing a Guru Yoga practice, now there are many different Guru Yoga practices, short and long. And the 4-session Guru Yoga is the most important and the most sacred of the Guru Yoga practices of the Karma Constant. And so that is very important for us. If you're in the Geluk tradition, for example, there's a 6-session Guru Yoga. But for us, we consider that this 4-session Guru Yoga is the most important and most sacred. Now, in order to practice the 4-session Guru Yoga, you have to visualize yourself as the Yidam Vajravarahi. In order to visualize yourself as that, you need to have the Vajravarahi empowerment. But Vajravarahi is he was given the co-emergent, Karmapa gave to Sun Khyentse the co-emergent creation phase practice of the co-emergent. And so the main place where we get the Karmapa comes from it's the main place where the Karma Constant practice comes from that. So if we have the Vajravarahi empowerment, that's good. However, the Varahi empowerment is not something we should be given just to anyone. Someone has real interest in someone who thinks that you will want to be able to uphold this tradition. Then at that point, you should go to an authentic lama and supplicate fervently. If it's not that, then it's okay to meditate. It's not something that you have to visualize yourself as any yidam whose empowerment you've received. Now the lama. No, Now, in the fourth session Guru Yoga, you visualize the Guru as Mikhail Dorje. Now, we don't really know what Mikhail Dorje really looks like, but we don't really know. So you have to sort of imagine a little bit, but we don't really know what Mikhail Dorje himself is. So we visualized in the form of Mikhail Dorje, but that is, in the essence, is inseparable from our own root Guru. The way I think about it, as my opinion is, there is our compassionate teacher. Then it is important for us to think of our compassionate teacher and our gurus as being the same. And the reason that our guru is because the precious guru were able to come because of the compassionate teacher, the Buddha. And that is the kindness of the Buddha that we are able to have a guru in between. So if you're to remember the compassionate Buddha, sometimes we forget about that. Sometimes in Tibet, we consider the guru to be so important. Of course, the guru is important, but if we think that we think we do have a little bit of fault. Sometimes people call us a Lamaist religion, and I think that we do have this fault. For example, when we were in a monastery, we have the two sections. We have the section of scriptural teachings and the practices. And the monastery is a place where we can practice teachings of scripture and practice. If we look at this, this is all because we think that the Buddha is actually what's the problem is. And sometimes I often put the Guru's image in the center, and then we put the Buddha off to the sides of the place, if we even put it there. So actually, within our own individual teachings, whether we put, it's okay to put you can do it however you like, whether you can put the Guru in the center or the Buddha in the center. But in the monastery, in order to match the general meaning of the teachings, it's important I think it's very good for us to follow the general Buddhist teachings. And so I think as we follow it in terms of the teachings, so basically, our root guru and our kind guru, root guru, and the Buddha Shakyamuni, or compassionate Buddha Shakyamuni, are inseparable. And also, the Karmapa comes from the forefathers of the Kagyu lineage, Telopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milo, and Galarpa, and the teachers, the 4 elder and 8 younger religions, and as well as all the masters of all the different lineages. And we have to imagine that our guru is inseparable from all the root and lineage lamas. If we think that it's just like a person, it's not just thinking, oh, there's some person in there. We think that he is the embodiment of all the qualities of the Buddha, the embodiment of all the blessings of the Buddha, and it's important to have that thought. If we just think it's just one person that we're imagining in front of ourselves. And then the question of whether we'll get the blessings or not is difficult. And so for that reason, we have to imagine the Guru in this way. Then we will gather the accumulations more quickly. We'll be able to purify our obscurations more quickly. And for that reason, there's a great reason to do this. And so, in that manner, the main point of what I'm saying is that from 10 o'clock on, when we were reciting the 4 sessions of Guru Yoga, at that time, everyone please participate in this. So I haven't much else to say.